I love Saints Row. As someone who has never really gotten into any of the Grand Theft Auto titles, Saints Row captivated my attention when I stumbled across the game by chance and decided to give it a go. The original Saints Row has never been my favorite in the series, but it's a solid GTA-like that did have me interested enough through its characters, world, and activities that I had to check out Saints Row 2, which is still to this day not only my favorite in the series, but one of my favorites in the open world genre. Saints Row 2 is where Saints Row really separated itself from GTA, with its humor, its characters, its world, and things to do within. They took that to the extreme in Saints Row 3, which fans are divided on whether that was for the better or not, but I love Saints Row 3 as well for those same reasons. Did they take it even further with Saints Row 4? Yes, but that game is great fun too. I even enjoyed Gat Out of Hell, which seems to be a bit of a punching bag for the series. My point is, I love Saints Row, and after such a long hiatus, to have the promise of the series returning not only to gaming but to a more grounded level was something that did get me excited, and what makes Saints Row 2022 all the more disappointing. The Saints Row reboot might just be one of the most disappointing games I've ever played. I understand with the term reboot comes the fact that a series change is imminent, and I've enjoyed many a reboot for series I never played before, like Tomb Raider for example. So maybe for someone this reboot is a nice jumping in point, though the difference between this game and say Tomb Raider is mechanically Tomb Raider is a good game whether it's true to the IP or not. But as a fan, to have this game be called Saints Row hurts, because they ignore what makes this series so great. This isn't Saints Row. It may have a few missions and activities that feel reminiscent of the old days, but overall this is a generic game that has no soul and becomes incredibly tedious to play real quick. If you want to play the game for yourself and avoid spoilers, here's your cue to leave. Do feel free to leave the video a like and comment below if you want to see more Saints Row videos though before you go. My spoiler-free recommendation would be to not buy the game, at least not until it makes its way to Game Pass or is heavily discounted. For everyone else, let's dive into Saints Row 2022. Let's address the technical side of things first, because I'm someone who played the game before and after the day one patch. Thank you to Deep Silver for the review code, I do appreciate the thought. And a lot of the reviews that I've seen on this game focus heavily on this aspect of the game, and whilst it was terrible and still isn't great, it's not my biggest issue with the game. I understand why people highlight it so heavily. I mean, outside of that, the game's pretty generic and hard to talk about in great detail given there isn't much to speak of, but it's still an issue, and I've never liked that it'll be better eventually, don't bother talking about it mentality, because that's how you go from Skyrim to Fallout 76. Before the day one patch, this game was in rough shape, as I'm sure you've seen by now, but even to this day there are issues that, whilst not as game breaking for me anyway, are still issues. Cutscenes getting stuck on black screens, lots of T-posing, broken AI. Like, really broken AI. Takedowns causing a weird glitch when shooting, frequent pop-in, that sort of thing. Again, from my personal playtime, those game-breaking bugs I experienced before launch don't seem to be present anymore, but the game is far from technically sound. I don't want to ignore the game's technical state because it is a problem, and ignoring these sorts of problems leads to a larger industry issue that we're experiencing. But I think it's far from Saints Row's biggest problem. The reason I say this is because I've seen a lot of responses to the technical issues being, once they fix it, it'll be a good game. And I don't think that's true. Mechanically, to this game's core, it is mediocre at best, and fixing some pop-in or broken animations isn't going to fix that. They're not fixing the awful writing, they're not fixing the lifeless world, they're not fixing the below average gunplay, they're not fixing the core game, and that is where my biggest beef with Saints Row comes from. The game feels outdated from tip to toe. The shooting feels clunky. The weapons pack no punch, and outside of a few are run of the mill. The enemies are dumb as a doorknob and take headshots no problem. The way enemy encounters are designed is all wave based, which gets repetitive when shooting takes up 70 to 80% of the game's length. Some encounters feel so poorly thought out, having enemies you can barely even see, let alone shoot at. Grenades have no punch. Enemies can take rockets no drama when outside of vehicles, but cars crumple like wet paper. Melee is useless. Aim assist even on mouse and keyboard prioritizes enemies behind as opposed to in front. I could go on and on. It's just not fun and feels worse than games prior, further highlighted through the mission design repeating so frequently. Driving is fine. It gets the job done despite absolutely busted NPCs who love causing pile-ups over not knowing who has the right of way. The GPS on the road and on the map also frequently conflict with one another, which is annoying and just shows as another example of how little care this game had put in. Also, not driving, but the VTOL mission is terrible. You can't see anything in this view. Other than that, I don't have much to say. I didn't mind driving itself. Where I was driving though is another story. This world is dull, it has no life whatsoever, and it's boring both visually and mechanically. Driving from point A to B was exactly that, nothing enticing me to pull over, no scenario that begged me to stop and check it out. Hell, half the time the roads are dead quiet, so driving isn't even that interesting. This world just doesn't feel lived in. It feels like the only reason anything happens is because I'm triggering it to happen. And as a whole, despite having activities we've seen before that I love, like insurance fraud for example, I just had no interest in exploring here. Also visually, it gave me mad Rage 2 vibes. Not my style, and you know, it's never good to remind someone of Rage 2, but that's more a personal issue. The big problem I'm sure you've been waiting for is the game's writing. The writing made Saints Row the series it is. It made these characters great. It poked fun at everyone. It may not have been written for everyone. I mean, everyone finds different things humorous, but I think I stand with the majority when I say this game's plot and characters are terrible. God, I hate these guys. I cannot stand them, not even our character. I wanted to mute the game at multiple points. It had gotten so bad. It, again, just feels so out of touch. Like the cast feels like a group of hipsters, relatable because they commit crime to pay off their student loans. Screw capitalism, but everyone's a capitalist, so no one's good. I'm sad, let me buy hella knives. I don't know, I zoned out after a while. It all blends into one big pile of crap. The rival gangs have no character, the leaders have no real build-up or rivalry with the Saints. The Saints themselves are intolerable. I just couldn't believe Saints Row's writing had fallen this far. It feels so foreign and is probably the biggest reason all the other issues are so prominently highlighted. I mean, Saints Row 1 has some dated mechanics, and yet I had more fun playing that for 6 or so hours than 2022 because when I'm doing these missions, I actually have some compelling characters with me or against me. That's my biggest pet peeve with the Saints Row reboot though. It made me question why I even enjoyed the series to begin with. Not even Fallout 76 made me question why I love Fallout. You have to completely screw the pooch to make someone question a whole series. That's why I went back and played not just the original, but 2, 3, 4, even Gat Out of Hell, trying to and succeeding in finding out why I loved this series because I was looking to Twitter and I was starting to see a lot of this was always what Saints Row was, we're just old, and that's just not true at all and seems like a way for fans of this game, which is totally fine if you enjoy the game, but that reasoning seems like a way to diminish the series to make the reboot seem better more than anything else. Sure, the original was the learning experience, figuring out how to GTA but a bit different. The sequel quickly finds what makes the series stand out, the third taking that concept and going wild, and the fourth and spin-off going off the rails. Each game has its strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to pretend the series has been perfect up to this point, but they're all fun. That fun is missing here in the reboot because the game has no personality, no flair on top of the below average gunplay, a lifeless open world, and fine driving mechanics with busted traffic controls. Saints Row was a series that, love it or hate it, it had personality, and 2022 you could say has a personality, but it's just incredibly annoying, out of touch, and painful to experience. Fans of the channel know I don't like being this guy who just dumps on a game. Honestly, if this game was called anything but Saints Row, I wouldn't be here making this video. Also, if I didn't get the game for free too. Again, thank you, Deep Silver. Dead Island 2 looks cool. Saints Row is a series I love, and to see a reboot this piss poor makes me understand where some other fandoms are coming from. Again, the Saints Row reboot wasn't disappointing because I expected the game to be incredible from the trailers. It's disappointing because this isn't Saints Row. In short, the game stinks, with and without the technical faults. I don't recommend spending your hard-earned money. I don't recommend wasting your time. It looks like a game so bad it's good. Trust me, it wears off after a couple of hours and just becomes boring. If you enjoy the game, that's totally cool. We all have different opinions and you're free to voice yours in the comments. I didn't. And as a fan of Saints Row, it sucks to say, but Volition, if this is your best and this is your response to criticism about your best, just leave Saints Row be. You tried, you failed. Let it be done, because what you've made here in 2022 is a game that feels so outdated. The original Saints Row gives it a run for its money, and that's just sad. Thank you all so much for watching my review on Saints Row. Can't say I enjoyed myself particularly, but I hope you enjoyed visiting the game with me nonetheless. I know the review is late. I got my review code a day before the game's release and wanted to take my time and fully process my thoughts as much as I could. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave it a like because it helps let me know that you enjoyed yourself. Comment below your thoughts on Saints Row, reboot, or series in general, as well as any suggestions for games you want to see covered in the future. Shout out to the channel members Infamous Sir Hellfire featuring Gagiano, Christian Vilgag, and Cloud Connection for that extra level of support. I truly do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Go give my socials a follow if you fancy, @MayorHairBear, and I'll catch you all in the next video.